It's preposterous, man. AD and I were just on a roll, and we forgot we didn't start the show recording. So
yeah. We'll talk about it later, I guess.
We will talk about it. Oh,
it's about
coronavirus and how we should respond as Christians in a loving, tender, sensitive way. Welcome to Reformgelical, where the Reformed and evangelicals meet. For now, apparently people are praying for a name change, which if you're going to pray for the show, can you pray for it to grow, not for us to change everything up, please?
That's right. No, we'll never change the name.
Yeah. There was a post on the Fight Laugh Feast page. Brandon, anyone else praying that Reformgelical has to change its name to something like Two Reformed Dudes in the near future? Come on over, Matt. The water's fine. And so I was given a test, and it turns out I'm 98% Reformed.
Nice. Might be skewed.
Yes, but we are here live with people. Dave, welcome. Thank you for joining. We are live 8:30 p.m. Eastern time, Thursday nights. Love for you guys to join us. We have such a great time having you guys interact with us and just having you guys contribute to the show, something we are trying to do more and more of. And that's just been even great for us. We love it. We love when you guys come to join. So pray about coming, supporting us. Go to Reformgelical. Patreon.com/Reformgelical. You think I would get it over to 20th episode? Nope, still don't get it. You can follow us on all the social media sites, Reformgelical. You can follow AD on his YouTube page. His show is phenomenal. If you are just watching this and don't know about AD, well, he puts out a show every single day, and it's usually fantastic. And if not fantastic, it's beyond that. So check him out, Real AD Robles at Twitter. You can find me, How to Build a Tent. I have a business show you can check out. And then this show gets released sometime Friday, whenever it takes me to edit and send it out. So there you go. Appreciate you guys for supporting us, sharing the show with a friend. That always helps us. AD, how's your week going?
It's going great. It's going great.
My week's going great too. I can smell the taste, or I can taste the taste, I guess would be the way to say it, of victory. I feel like there are people starting to get a little squirmy. They're a little nervous about our platform and how we're coming out of the woodwork.
Oh, yeah.
Do you get that sense?
Well, I'll tell you what, there's been a couple of articles in a row. In my video I made today about it, I said it was a series. It's not technically a series, but they're all talking about the same stuff. And if you remember last week on Reformgelical, we actually talked about one of these articles. And it was so funny because at the time, the article said that the problem is that it's been decentralized and anyone can just say anything. And that's exactly the problem that they're talking about today.
Yeah, that is exactly it. And you had a great show on one of the articles that I wanted to discuss, but we don't need to get into it the way you did. But basically, we have a litmus test to determine if we are worth listening to or not, based on how we treat our family and friends. We're supposed to apparently share with that. And there's this whole question list of, should you listen to somebody, a pundit, which is that just podcasters? Like, who do you think is in this pundit class?
It's basically anyone who is talking about, I don't know, social issues, politics, things like that. But they're not necessarily in those areas themselves. They're not in politics, but they talk about politics. Mm-hmm. What does pundit mean? Does anyone know the definition? I'm going to look it up.
You look it up. And I just think it's very peculiar that why do you need to even say this stuff? And I was thinking about this, and it's sad in a way because we should be on the same team, guys. And in a lot of ways, we should be irrelevant, where we don't even need to be saying this stuff and for you to listen to us, because you guys are on point, preaching the gospel, saying what you need to say. But because you guys aren't, then you got to start playing this defense. You got to start commentating on us and, criticizing us and delegitimizing us. Mm-hmm. When all along, all you had to do was what was right.
Yeah.
Why are you mad? Just do what is right. I feel like that's somewhere in the Bible very early on.
Well, no, it's just so interesting because I was telling my wife earlier today that, I get why articles like this are written. I understand because Kevin DeYoung and people like him, they've worked very hard for their credentials. They've went to school for a long time. They probably spent a lot of money on the education time, energy. They've played the game. They've risen through the ranks, politically as well. And that's effort. I'm not discounting any of that. That takes effort to do that kind of stuff. And then they see some moron that takes $50, sends it to Amazon. They send him a camera, and they don't know anything about this guy. They have no idea if he's ever played the game like they have. They don't know if he's even gone to school. And it just seems like he just turns on the camera and just starts yelling. And somehow he's got influence, and it really burns them up. And you type in Kevin DeYoung on YouTube, there's a good chance that you're going to find my video today about him ranking on YouTube. I'm not saying it definitely is. I haven't checked, but there's a good chance. And that's got to burn him up. Russell Moore makes a YouTube channel, and he's put time and effort into playing the political game, going to school, writing books, all this stuff, building up a street cred. He launches a YouTube channel, and he has 4,000 subscribers. And some moron sends Amazon $50. They send him a camera, and he's got almost as many subscribers. That burns them up. And so they're trying to defend their craft a little bit. I get it.
Yeah, I get it too. And because it's not really uncommon from any other really industry. If you think of them as an industry, right? They're the ones putting out the content. They're the ones for so long have been the ones with the knowledge, have been the ones with the platform. Like technology has given us the platform to say things, but before we were just never invited up on the stage or had the opportunity to be on the stage. And now we have these platforms from Amazon for $50 overnight delivery. And now it's not about a platform competition anymore. It's about ideas and relevance. And the problem, and what I've been thinking about this too, is it's hard for people like Kevin and you guys talking about how much you like him. It's hard for them to break rank because one of the qualifications of being in the circle and being on their platform is that they have to toe the line and say the same narrative. Like you can't really say things outside the talking points, right? I'm not going to really see someone on the Gospel Coalition talking about how critical race theory is a big danger. I'm just guessing. I haven't read all their stuff. We're not going to talk about how racism is really overblown. I'm not going to see that article either, right? There's a set of narratives that you have to hold on to, and you can't break rank. So the question is like, what side are you going to pick? How long are you going to stay on the platform? And then are you going to jump? And I think that's going through a lot of people's minds. Did you find out what pundit said? What pundit means?
It just means an expert in a particular subject or field that is frequently called upon to give opinions to the public.
Oh, we are pundits. That was actually a compliment.
I don't think it's intended as a compliment. I think that's the literal definition, but I think if I could be wrong on this, but it definitely seems to have a negative connotation.
It feels like
I don't think that DeYoung would appreciate being called a pundit.
Oh,
put it that way.
Man, if I really cared, I would really be upset about that. But actually, I'm really encouraged by it.
Yes, absolutely.
Because this is what winning looks like, guys. We were talking about this December, early January, about 2020 is going to be a big year. And if things were going to happen, these are the kind of articles that I would pick or predict to happen in my hypothesis. Like if things were going to start changing, if power structures were going to be shifted, if silos were going to be de-siloed, whatever you want to call it, I would expect to start seeing these kind of articles. Because, I have a very crazy neighbor of mine down the street. He is not very doctrinally sound. He has really crazy theories, but I'm not writing articles about him. I'm not specializing in creating specific podcasts to criticize him because he's irrelevant and no one cares. And he's the crazy neighbor. So what does that tell you? That these people think that these pundits, quote unquote, of us are a threat. Oh,
of course. But the thing that's so interesting about it too, is that they will never, no matter what, they will never, ever name us. Because what's going to happen if they name us is that people are going to go to our YouTube channel and they're going to see that we're really reasonable, that we're not the way that they're saying that we are. That I don't pretend to be a scholar when I'm not. I say very simple things that everyone can understand. And then they're going to be like, well, what's the big deal here, Big Eva? And our channels are going to grow. So they don't want to do that because they know it isn't the way they say it is. But if they can try to throw a few, kind of vague bombs people's way. They're trying to poison the water a little bit for us so that when people see an online pundit say something that they're instantly suspicious. That's the strategy. I really don't think it's going to work, because every time they put out an article like this and I make a video about it, it really strikes a chord with people.
It really does.
People see that this is what's going on and they don't like it.
Yeah. And the other reason they want to name us by names is they're actually scared that they're going to realize that we put out good content.
Absolutely.
And that we don't have to hide behind the thousands and thousands of dollars of production and publications and the established channels of distribution. Is that we're doing this on our own, just simply talking to people.
Absolutely. And the other thing is that because we're not in the machine, we're not playing the game, we don't have the same rule set that they're working with. We can say things that are true that they can't say. Right. We can say things that they're true that they feel, at least they feel like they can't say. Of course they can, but because they're playing this game, they won't. And I think, and this is the real problem with this strategy. The reason why I know it won't work is because we're in a post-Trump era. We know how people think about stuff like this, and so every single time somebody sees Trump's spelling get ripped in the media, and he misspells a word, he the typo in one of his tweets, right? And people say, "Oh, what a moron! He's so stupid!" Like every conservative, regular person goes, "They're actually not calling Trump stupid; they're calling me stupid," because you know what? I misspell words all the time. It just happens, and it's just, I don't really care that much. And so it's the same thing here when they say when Kevin DeYoung muses, if they have a degree, are their opinions even worth listening to? He thinks he's insulting me, but what he's actually doing is insulting everyone in the pews, because the people in the pews are saying, you know what? I don't have a degree either.
Yeah.
So what are you saying here, Kevin? You know what I mean? Like, I can't understand the Bible. See, God was smart, because he gave us this scripture that's you don't have to be an academic to be able to understand it. He didn't give us the scripture that is completely ununderstandable. No, he gave it to us. I think people say it's like at a high school level of reading. That's what most of it's written at, and we can understand it. So it's like Kevin, I know you think you're insulting us, and I know you are in a way,
yeah.
But really, like normal people see that and they're like, "But that's me too, though." That you're insulting here.
And you know what's the most angering thing about this elitism? Like, I could care less what people think of us. Honestly, like we don't need their cookie. We have been working hard. We have our own jobs. I have degrees. You have degrees. Like, we're not stupid people. We don't care about them. We're not throwing them out there because it doesn't matter. It's about our arguments, about what we say. Like Dave says, because we talk about what matters, not because we're talking about it in some brilliant intellectual way, but in relevant ways.
Yeah.
Where was I going?
I love when people throw out their credentials like that, because it's just like you could talk about your credentials all day long if you wanted to. But the thing, and there's times when it's appropriate, right? But to be honest, like to lead with this and to say and to cast doubt on anyone that doesn't have the same guild credentials that I do, it's just it's an off-putting strategy. We all know those people that talk about their degrees and all their street cred all the time. And again, there's times for this, especially the times that it works was when somebody says, "Well, who are you to say?" And like you have like the perfect answer, like
it's like lay it down.
I'm a PhD in mathematics. You know what I mean? Like that's a good time, right?
How do you like them apples?
Right, exactly. Yeah. But we all know people like this, and it's so off-putting. And even if it like they're good credentials, because I happen to think Kevin DeYoung's credentials are pretty good. But if
education's great. if
you have to throw that up as a reason why you're right, like people see through that.
You're losing.
You're losing.
That's the thing. It's like, and through business, and I'm sure it's the same in the academia worlds with seminary and stuff, is if you have to resort back to who you are, like the reverse ad hominem, like listen to me because of X, Y, and Z that I've done, and you can't just solely rely on your argument, you've lost.
Right.
You've lost. In a business, that's true. Like, I never have to talk about my master's degree because what I'm saying in the moment on strategy, on problem solving makes sense.
Right.
No one's like, oh, that doesn't really make sense. Where did you go to school? That doesn't happen.
Absolutely. And then a good example of a time where it might be appropriate for you is if you get somebody else making a YouTube video about how Matt's just an idiot. He's never had a business. He doesn't know any of this stuff. And then you're like, well, I've owned this business and that business. And so clearly you don't know what you're talking about.
Right.
Like there might be a time for that, but like, I don't know, man, it's a bad look. And I just don't think it's going to work. Maybe it will. I could be wrong. I think it's a bad play though.
And what makes me angry about it the most in our circles as Christians is that it's like you're kind of effectively going back to the era of Roman control where it was like, we're the only ones who can read Latin. We're the only ones who can read the text. We're going to tell you what it says. Now, you can't put the genie back in the bottle now. We have Bible apps. We have, printing presses. We have any number of ways to get Bibles and to actually read it ourselves. But effectively, you're saying the same thing when you use this elitism. Like, you shouldn't listen to anybody. They can't be authoritative because they don't have the credentials we say they have. It's the same thing, is it not?
I saw a lot of people saying that, and it's quite similar. There's no question about it. It is quite similar.
Like, I don't know how it's different, quite honestly. Like, you don't have any right to say anything about the Bible to anybody because you don't have these degrees. It's like, what are we talking about here? Like, are you seriously? Are we going to that level? That's the protectionism that you're going to put in place? It's crazy.
What's weaselly about it is like, because at least with Catholics, they had official doctrines about this, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And they had an official teaching about this. But here it's squish because like DeYoung will put out an article like this. That other person put out an article. I forget the name of the person who did, but last week's article. And there's been a series of articles like this. And they never really say that, you shouldn't listen to those online pundits. They never really say that we're sinning necessarily, but they do everything but do it.
They hint at it. Yeah.
They hint at it and they really do say it, but they have a way to weasel out and stuff like that. So they're trying to poison the well without actually saying anything. It's super squish. It's very sneaky. And I think that I don't think it's going to work. That's what I'll say. I just don't think it's going to work.
It's not going to work. And it's not going to work for this reason. It reminds me of a saying, and his name was Simon Sinek. I don't know if you've heard of him. He's not a Christian. He's a philosopher, a worldly philosopher, but he says this, and it's a really good application. He's really big in the business world. He said, if you talk like an engineer, speaking to an engineering company, only engineers are going to understand you. Mm-hmm. If you talk like the janitor in the company, everyone in the organization will understand you.
Right.
And I really believe that is what we do well, is we're talking like janitors. We're talking like people, or we're talking like everyone else. And so you don't need to have this higher degree to understand what we're saying. We're talking about real life applicable things. And this is the trap and why I think they're losing and going to lose, and there's no way around it. Just like I said, there's a way that you have to talk. There's a narrative you have to say things. And it's either, so are you going to be the intellectual that knows more than everyone and talks down to people with your big words and your big theories and your big ideas? Or are you going to come down to our level and talk like us and compete and, like have these discussions at our level? And I don't think you could do both. Either you're going to have to be the elite academic, or you're going to come back down to the everyday man and be one of us. And I think that's a choice that they're going to have to make, and they don't want to leave. They don't want to come down and speak like us, really.
Well, they do. They just don't want anyone to question them when they speak. They don't like that. And I get it. I get it. Because it must really burn them up. And this is something I've been thinking a lot about too. And we won't talk about this the whole time, but they have their schemes and they're like, well, the gospel is all about diversity. The gospel is all about racial reconciliation. It all sounds so good. And then they have these schemes about how to accomplish it. And then some moron comes on YouTube and he goes, yeah, I didn't go to seminary or anything, but the Bible says you shouldn't be partial to poor people or rich people. And I'm like, I don't know, sure sounds like you're saying partiality, and they must burn them up because I can defeat their whole scheme in one sentence and everyone can understand it. you know, everyone can understand it. And it's like, you know what I mean? Like, it must be hard. Let's just say it that way. It must be hard.
It must be hard to do what they're doing, but they don't have to do it.
That's
the problem. And
that is the problem.
Like, and this is what we consult with businesses that are, you know, been around for 80, 100 years. How do you deal with technology? You're not going to deal with it. You're not going to overcome it by just being the big company you've always been. You have to have a strategy on how do you integrate it into your organization, into your culture. Some people do it through acquisitions. Some people do it through, you know, creating separate departments that just study technology. It's like, there's ways for you to do this, guys, where you can bring us into the fold. You can have us come in and help, but it's like a pride issue or something where it's like, that doesn't even cross their mind. Yeah.
So one of the people that was in the target of this article in particular was Pulpit and Pen, for sure. He didn't name him, but he wrote a few things that made it very clear that that's who he was talking about. And I've said this many times to on my YouTube channel. If you don't like Pulpit and Pen, okay, fine. That's totally fine. So if you don't want them to have any influence, then start talking about some of the things that they're talking about it and do it in your way. Do it in the way that's more winsome. Do it in the way that's not flamethrower all the time. And you could probably defeat Pulpit and Pen very easily. But the thing is, you refuse to do it. And so I prefer Pulpit and Pen's way of trying to talk about some of these things to your way of not talking about them at all. I mean, I know I get in trouble for saying that, but that's just the reality. I do. Right. So if I have to choose between not talking about the funding sources for ERLC and stuff like that, or talking about it and then having to deal with a few ad hominems and some, you know, language that I don't care for, I'm going to choose that because I'm a big boy and I can deal with that language. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's just that simple. So if you don't like it, then you start doing it and show us how it's done. Right. You won't do it because I know that's not how Big Eva operates.
Yeah. No.
So we need Pulpit and Pen, and the reality is, and I don't mean we need them specifically, but we need people like them that are not part of that machine. That's why we exist, because we don't play by those rules that you guys have set up for yourselves. I know you will never, ever, ever submit to the ERLC being investigated and stuff like that. You'll all come out of the woodwork and you'll all rally, circle the wagons like we talked about last week. You'll all do that because that's what you do. You exist, you know, to keep the machine going. And so you need yokels like me on the internet. You need other people like, you know, not just me, but like people like us that aren't part of that machine that can keep you honest.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, you could put me out of business right now. I mean, it'd be very easy to do.
Right. I don't know if you're kind of being modest about it because you have a great show. It's not just because you're filling a void, but I think you have a great standalone show all by itself. But it's just like, guys, like, do we believe that we're a body of Christ and we have different functions? We don't all have to be like you. Like Paul was actually serious about that. Like not everyone's an eye, not everyone's an arm. And just like we shouldn't complain about not being an arm if we're an eye or a foot or a head or whatever we are. Like, don't get mad at a foot being a foot when you're a hand either.
That's what I'm talking about, man. We and I said that in my video. You know, we need people like Kevin DeYoung, because Kevin DeYoung is positioned in a way that he can have an influence on the PCA that I cannot have. I would never be able to have it, even if I was in the PCA, and that's a good thing. That's good that he's in that position. So I don't know if you know this, Matt, but the PCA was debating something preposterous about homosexuality. It was unbelievable that this was a debate, and it was not looking good. Put it that way. And Kevin DeYoung gave a very passionate, well-reasoned speech on the floor. I don't remember exactly the details, but it was really good. Mm-hmm. It was really good, and I think probably was the main reason that it actually turned out that whatever the decision was turned out okay. And that's great because he was in that position. He's a trusted guy. He's earned his street cred. Fine. All that's good. And he's a winsome kind of guy. All that was fantastic. And he's perfect for that. Mm-hmm. All I'm asking from guys like Kevin DeYoung is that they don't despise people who aren't like them, because there's another role. We've talked about it many times. Ezra and Nehemiah. Ezra is the one who's very studied and learned and very pious and all that. And Nehemiah is the one who pulls your beard out if you marry a foreigner. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? It's like, we need both of them. God blesses both of them.
Absolutely. And I see myself as that more of that head of the spear kind of person too, where like if I was a pastor, I wouldn't be acting or saying the things that I was saying. Not that I'm sinning or feel like I'm doing something wrong, but I feel like there's different roles and there's different places. We need fighters. We need people that are going to be saying things that are provocative, not for provocative sake, but to make sure that we are being honed and that we are, pursuing the gospel and like making sure that we're not letting critical race theory in. We're not letting these liberal things in. We're calling people out on things. Like we need that.
Yeah. Yeah. We do need that.
We definitely need that.
And we need it from a winsome perspective, just as much as we need it from my, kind of, a little bit more in your face perspective. Some people think I'm actually too tame. Did you know that?
No, really?
Yeah. Somebody on Twitter yesterday said that, I only talk about these important issues in a very indirect way. I was like, what the heck are you talking about, man?
I told you about the time someone told me I was effeminate, right?
Oh, well, clearly. Clearly.
But like, honestly, I'm even okay with that. If you are the type that's not controversial, you want to be more gentle.
Of course.
Great. I think that God is going to use you and your style, your characteristics for the kingdom of God. Praise God.
That's what I'm saying.
And some people are going to use my sassy satire and, my bluntness. And, sometimes I'm going to overstep and I'm going to have to repent and I'm going to have to, but that's just part of how God made me. And I want to glorify God with how God used me. I don't want to be like you. That's not going to do us any good. All right, the last thing I want to say on this article is, did you see the updates? Because I honestly don't know if you saw these.
Updates.
There's a whole nother 7 set of questions.
No,
besides
updates
written by Samuel James.
Okay.
Questions for my writing life. Oh. You didn't see these. All right, I'm going to ask you these questions.
I don't write though, so why do I care about this?
I don't know. Well, I mean, we write with our words, don't we? I don't know. But okay, so here's one though that was let's see if this is it. Okay, this is the problem with being so squish, as you would call it. I call it soft. Is you ask this question about attacking writers again, and this is probably definitely going at pulpit and pin. You're probably 100% right if this is all about writers. Number 4 on these questions asked is, am I saying anything that could damage the reputation of my employer or my church? Now, forget the church part for a second. As Christians, most of us do not work for Christian companies. I hope we are saying things and writing things that would damage the brand of the company I work for in some effect. Do you know how many secular companies are kissing the ring of the LGBTQ? I pray Christians are damaging that image. I pray that we are saying things that are hurting them. And so when we have this perspective where we're like, oh, are we being sensitive? Are we being good employees? It's like, what message are you sending when we have to worry about how we're honoring our employer?
I'm kind of speechless, to be honest. Would I quietly prefer if these people didn't read what I'm writing? I can't even fathom, especially coming from a Christian perspective, this idea. Like, do I want my employer to know every single thing that I've said on YouTube? Probably not. You know what I mean? But
I'm waiting for the moment where the people that hire me as a consultant see this.
but it's not because. So I guess let me reword that, because the way he set this up here is, would it damage their reputation? Well, I'm sure it would in many people's eyes. But the thing is, and so obviously I don't want to put my employer in a situation where they think they have to fire me. But if it becomes like a choice between saying the truth or being fired, I'm definitely gonna. At least I would hope that I would say the truth.
Yeah,
I don't know. Like I'm not really entirely sure.
And it's such a foreign perspective to me, because I'm never talking, and maybe this is why I get in trouble sometimes. I'm never saying things or thinking about how I'm saying things to make sure that people are approving it, or that making it like, I don't think, if I say it this way, is all of these people in my life going to approve it? I just think of it as, okay, is this true? Do I believe this to be right? Is this honoring to God? Yes, send. I'm going to say it. And if people have a negative response, well, if I'm saying it truthfully and it's honoring God, that's not my problem. And I think us Christians, we get in trouble a lot because we care too much about how people respond to what we say. And in our relationships, even, we don't like, I am personally, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, AD, but I don't think it is our job to make sure people feel good. I don't think it's our job to make sure people are warm and toasty inside. Our job is to love people, is to fulfill our roles that God's called us to, husband, wife, sister, brother, whatever it is. But if we're doing what's honoring to God, sometimes it's not going to make people feel good. And that's not our problem, as long as we're being obedient, right?
I would say so.
So why are we asking these stupid questions about our employers?
Yeah, I just don't even, I don't know. I don't really know what to say. I mean, I'm just seeing this for the first time.
Then I'm going to keep going, because this is the problem, is then we get into this mindset of constantly second guessing ourselves, and it's readjusting our perspective on, like, okay, why are we doing what we're doing? Why are we saying what we're doing? Why am I tweeting? Well, if it's in some part to, well, is my employer going to be honored? Like, they don't own me. I'm not their slave. What I do on my private time does not concern them. And if we are having these burdens put on us, that's not from God. So get that out of here. Stop asking these stupid questions to make yourselves look better, please.
Well, good. Well said.
Oh my goodness.
Pretty ridiculous.
You know, another thing that got me really upset today is Beth Moore again, and we haven't talked about her. And, you know, I always debate, like, do we need to really bring her up again? But then I saw how many followers she has. She's coming up on 1 million followers.
Yeah,
and
she's
it's like,
popular.
if no one ever says anything to her, or never responds, like, these 1 million people are just being, like, led off the cliff. It's absolutely terrible. Today, she said something to the effect of, you can't walk with God running from him. He is the Lord who heals us. He is the bread who fills us. Slow down. Okay. Now, if not obeying what God tells us to do in the Bible is not running from us, what is?
I'm not sure I understand. I maybe I missed what you said. Say it again.
She's saying you can't walk with God while you're running from him.
You can't walk.
And my question is how can you be doing what you're doing and that not being qualified as running from him? You're being a woman pastor.
Oh, I see what you're saying. She's not a pastor.
She's preaching to men. She's speaking. She's having authority.
Yeah, you know, she's definitely doing things that she shouldn't be doing. Let's put it that way.
She's doing things she shouldn't be doing. And then she's going and pretending like it's not a problem. And it's just it's sowing tares. It's sowing leaven in the bread. And it's completely destructive.
What do you have against women, Matt? That's my question.
I'm really bitter. They took some of our side. You know, they took something from us. No, that's what it is.
Makes sense now.
Oh my goodness. So I wanted to talk to you about another thing.
Yes, let's do it.
It was a interaction I had, and I don't know how I feel about it because I love this guy, Dustin Benj.
Oh yeah.
Am I saying his name right?
I think so. Yeah, he's good.
Yeah, we had a little Twitter dialogue, and I thought it was good. But he is a Puritan, I believe. Now, I don't know too much about the Puritans. Do you know anything about Puritans?
Yeah, I sure do. Yeah, they're.
Can you give a little high level, 1-2 points about what a Puritan is?
I probably wouldn't want to butcher that, but it's just they're Reformed Christians, came over on the Mayflower, stuff like that.
Mm-hmm. So, he said this. Sadly, what I often observe among men in Christian circles is an immature machoism, the desire to always come out on top, to always be right, to always be on the defense. Biblical manhood isn't always looking for a fight. It's gently looking to serve. Gently looking to serve is what he said.
What was the context? Was this just a random tweet of his, or was there a context here?
There was something to the effect of that's what he was saying, that we need to be gentle. We need to stop being, looking for a fight and things like that, which I can agree with. I can get on board with. Like, we shouldn't be just looking for a fight for fight's sake. I mean, there's plenty of fights to have that are legitimate. We don't need to go pick them, right?
Right, absolutely.
But my problem is, and like I'm saying there's a balance because we're constantly being told in this feminine society that we need to be more gentle. And it really is just going along the lines of becoming more effeminate in my mind.
Sure.
And again, I'm not trying to be macho and saying there's not times to be sensitive and
Yes.
gentle and things like that. Like there's times where there's humble people, there's broken people. We need to be gentle, sensitive to them. And there's a different perspective. But then there's a whole different perspective to the prideful people where they are bringing in destruction, like the previous conversation with Beth Moore, with our, the CRT, with the critical race theory and all that stuff, where gentleness isn't going to do.
Yeah.
And then so I said, like, isn't there a balance and times to do this? And he says, I agree that there's a balance, but boldness does not negate gentleness. People too often mingle their defense of truth with an argumentative spirit. Sometimes defending the truth means we keep our mouths shut. Okay, maybe there are those times, but I don't feel like we are in a time right now with all that is going on politically, denominationally, just culturally, where there's too many times where keeping our mouth shut is the right move. And also the second thing that just rubs me wrong about this is boldness does not negate gentleness. I don't know if I agree with that.
Okay, so let's talk about this because there's definitely some good stuff here, and he's right. But one thing that you said in the beginning, I want to make sure it doesn't get lost, is that we're in a very feminine culture, and so you would think that if we're in a very feminine culture, that you would see a lot more exhortations to being, to being manly, to being direct, to being strong and stuff like that. But you don't see that. What you see is you get some of that, but you always get this kind of call to be gentle and to be lovely and winsome and all this kind of stuff. It's overkill considering the situation we find ourselves in. Mm-hmm. Even in a feminine culture, of course, you're going to find people that are like, they've got this machismo and it's inappropriate. And so, of course, you'll have to correct it. But to hear him say, sadly, what I often observe is an immature machoism. That's not what I often observe. Right. What I often observe is effeminate men. That's what I often observe. And so it's just kind of a weird perspective. And I think we get too much of it's imbalance considering the problems that we have in the church. Mm-hmm. That being said, he's right. He's right. There's a problem with being argumentative. You shouldn't just be looking for a fight just for a fight's sake. But you are, again, Matt, are also right that the fight is everywhere. It's come to us. Like, we don't really have a choice anymore. Like, you can't even be a baker anymore and not have the fight come to you. There's no way. You will never be left alone as long as you're a Christian in our culture today.
Right.
It's not possible. Mm-hmm. You can't engage in business and be left alone. And that's a part of being a human, and engage in commerce and stuff like that. It's everywhere. You can't watch the Super Bowl without being confronted with the fight. You can't do anything. You can't even watch. I was saying, I was excited. Of course, I wanted to wait, but my son's into Legos, and there's a new Lego show or something like that. And I was excited about it. And of course, I come to find out that they're just pushing LGBT in the Lego show. And it's like, well, you can't even watch a show about Legos anymore.
Right. So
the reality is that you might be fighting often, and it has nothing to do with you just looking for a fight. Mm-hmm. That's just how it is nowadays. And so there's a balance. Yes. I think that the balance requires a lot more boldness than maybe it used to. And this idea that it doesn't negate gentleness, well, that's true, but gentleness is only good in certain contexts. You know what I mean?
Right.
I'll give you an example that I was thinking of, if you don't mind. Am I going too long?
No.
Okay. So here's the thing. I'm gentle with my kids, right? Mm-hmm. At least I strive to be at all times. But the reality is, though, that there are times when gentleness would be the wrong approach. So let's just say we were in our car, and we crashed, and we were in a river, and I needed to get my kids out of the car, right? And so I'm going to pull my kid out of the car with force. I'm going to pull him out because he's going to die if I don't, right? Mm-hmm. I'm going to pull him out of his car seat, and it's not going to be gentle. I might dislocate his shoulder when I'm pulling him out of this car, and it's not going to be gentle. That's an extreme example, obviously, but nobody would look at me and be like, well, why weren't you more gentle, Adam? They would understand. I mean, it's contextually what I was doing was the right thing. It was good, right?
Yeah.
And likewise, when you're in a fight, sometimes you can't be what you would normally describe as gentle. And we need to be okay with that, saying that the fruit of the Spirit is gentleness is one of those things. Yes, but there is a time for war. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And it was funny because it was like we went on Twitter on it for a little bit. It's like so gentleness, the quality of being kind, tender, or mild-mannered. And I get like, okay, it's part of the fruit of the Spirit.
Yes,
definitely. But obviously, and I don't know how this exactly works. Maybe we should talk about this, but it doesn't seem that you do all the fruit of the Spirit all at once, because I wouldn't really, or maybe we need to redefine gentleness and what it means in the fruit of the Spirit, because I wouldn't say mild-mannered and tender is Jesus making a whip out of cords, turning over tables, or calling people whitewashed tombs. If I turned over the donut table in church just one Sunday, no one's ever calling me gentle again.
The donut table.
I would never do that, guys. I would never do that blasphemy. I love maple donuts way too much. But right, like, so there's obviously times where Jesus wouldn't be however we define gentle today. Mm-hmm. So it can't be wrong.
Right.
And there has to be a time for it not to be quote unquote gentle. And it's concerning to me because I like what you're saying. We're in an effeminate culture. We're trending towards that way. But now is more of a time than ever not to be gentle in a lot of respects.
In many instances. Yeah, absolutely. Yes. Absolutely. I this is the conversation that we're having just consistently about tone. And, I've had conversations that have gone like this. Well, I know your tone was sinful. And I say, well, how did you know my tone was sinful? And they'll say something like, well, because the fruit of the Spirit is love. And I'm like, I know, and again, I'm not like ripping people when they're talking to me about this. I'm correctable. I said, yeah, I understand the fruit of the Spirit is love, joy, peace. We all know the song, right? Mm-hmm. And it's like, but we have to understand all of those words in a way that doesn't turn Jesus into a sinner.
Yeah, exactly.
Because Jesus loved people, and he also, like you said, insulted them intentionally. Mm-hmm. He also, made the whip of cords, and it wasn't just Jesus. I mean, that would be enough, but we see a pattern of people who God, he commends their work and stuff like that, and they have harsh words for people from time to time. And it's usually in situations that there's danger in the church, and there's error, and there's stuff like that. We've got a whole book of Jude that tells us how to deal with error in the church. And it doesn't really seem like what you're telling me love needs to be. Mm-hmm. And so yeah, the fruit of the Spirit is love. But if you can sit back and know that there are lots of Christians that are just desperate for you to vote for baby butcherers into office, and you can be okay with that, I would say you need to start cultivating a little bit more love, because that's not okay. And you need to love in context. And it's not like you just love the woman. You got to love the child that's about to be murdered too. Yeah. It's not like just love for one group and not the other. And this is why all the social justice schemes never work. Because, okay, we got to love our black and brown brothers and sisters in Christ, and therefore we need reparations. And I'm saying we do have to love our black and brown brothers and sisters in Christ, but we also have to love our white brothers and sisters in Christ who didn't do anything, and now you're taking money from them. Mm-hmm. So you can't just like love one in place of the other. You got to love them both. And there's only one way to do this. It's very difficult for a human being to decide how to do this. And it's actually impossible. God gives us the standard.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, again, defining love is important, because just because people want reparations doesn't mean it's good for them and it's loving for them. Giving people money who don't know how to use money is not going to be a long-term solution. Just look at anyone who wins the lottery. The majority of them go bankrupt. Like, I mean, it's not a good thing. You
got someone come to you and say, hey, I'm thinking about getting a sex change surgery. What do you think? And you're hemming and hawing, and you're saying, oh, it's just not God's best for you, and stuff like that. I was watching. I did a video this week about To Catch a Predator, and and there was one guy. I spent probably way too much time watching this show, but there was one guy who shows up at the house and he gets interviewed, and he says that he talked to his pastor about it, about meeting this girl.
Really?
And I mean, I have no reason to not believe him. I mean, why would he say that, right?
Right. Yeah.
And so Chris Hansen, of course, eats that up, and he's just like, "What did he say?"
Mm-hmm.
And the guy says to me, or not to me, to Chris Hansen, the guy says he said it probably wouldn't have been a good idea to do it. And I don't know what this guy said. I have no knowledge of what this pastor actually said.
Oh, you could totally see it though.
But you
it
could
probably
totally see
wouldn't be a good idea.
You could probably see it. You can see it in your mind. And it's just kind of like hemming and hawing. That's not God's best for you, young man. And what that kid needed was to be grabbed by the scruff of the neck and say, "Are you insane?
Right.
You're going to go molest a 12-year-old? Are you crazy?" That's what he needed. Mm-hmm. And he probably got, well, let's think about this. And what would Jesus do? And that's a good question. But sometimes you need a little oomph behind it.
Yeah, you definitely do. I mean, Micah puts in the notes, like in Galatians, Paul's like, "Oh, foolish Galatians, who has bewitched you?" Like, that's what you, like, fool, what are you doing? Like, who has put this over you?
Right. We read it in the Bible, and it doesn't have the same oomph, but you got to think about what he was actually saying there. You fools, number one.
Right.
Who's like, what, bewitched. Like, what can I say about that? Like you guys are being so stupid. You know what I mean? Like, who's dazzling you? Who's cast a spell over you? I mean, this is an insult. Yeah.
And he's like, "I wish I could change my tone, but I can't because you're fools."
Yeah. Right. And so we get these definitions, and I'm not saying Dustin was doing this. I don't know. I didn't follow.
He's so solid. I like that guy a lot. I love his Twitter.
So we get these definitions of like gentleness and love and these expectations that nobody in the Bible, including Jesus, would fit according to what you're saying. So that's why I know it's not true.
Yeah.
If you want to have a hearing with me, you're going to have to come up with some kind of explanation as to why we see all this harsh sounding rhetoric when it comes to error in the church back then, but it's no longer appropriate.
Or you need to tell me why it's sin for me, but it wasn't sin for Jesus. How are you going to tell me that what Jesus did was wrong? That's the problem. And nothing against him. He's not the only one who does this. It's our whole culture where we've become feminized, and our perspective of what love is has been Disney love.
Yeah.
And our perspective of what kindness and relationships are women's relationships with people. And so when we say like, "Hey, this is sin, this isn't sin," well, it doesn't fit the Jesus of the Bible. And so you're effectively calling Jesus a sinner. You're saying he's not gentle. You're saying he's not loving.
I know they're not thinking it through.
No.
But again, like, if you want to influence me for the better, which I'm grateful that you do. Whenever somebody tells me that they think I crossed the line, I'm always very grateful for that, because they obviously care about me. Mm-hmm. But you're going to have to come up with something better than, well, any kind of insult is off limits for a Christian. I mean, it's just not the case. I know, again, I've read the Bible. You know what I mean? So I know that's not possible. Mm-hmm. So you're going to have to come up with something. And this whole, I agree with you, Matt, that there's just an overemphasis, I think, on gentleness at a time when gentleness is really, or I'm sorry, when being too much of a man is really not our problem.
No, not at all. And in fact,
it is dangerous. A problem, but it's not our main problem.
No, it's dangerous to be saying we need to become gentle in an era that we're gentle. It's like, to me, I just think of like a pH balance, a simple characteristic of, if your water is acidic or not. If you're not acidic enough, you add acid. If you are too acidic, you take it away. We don't have enough acid, and we're talking about taking more acid out of the formula. We need more acid, and to take more of it out is just as dangerous as being too acidic. And so I pushed back on him, and I said this, and he was really great about it. I'm like, the reason why we have any kind of machoism is because no one has ever taught men how to be men and how to fight. He agreed to that, to his credit. Definitely. And that's the problem, is because we have had so many years, generations of men not being discipled and taught what it means to be a man. We've been in this feminine culture for a long time, the 70s.
Yeah.
Is that we are going to get it wrong.
Yeah.
I'm going to get it wrong. We're just having to figure this out on our own. So there's not really a need for you to talk about this macho problem. Like you said, that's not the problem. Like, correct us, show us how to be men. That's the problem. We don't have discipleship.
And I'm not saying to be a man you need to have harsh rhetoric. I'm not saying that.
No.
But the thing is, like there needs to be a certain level of directness to your speech, even if you're mild mannered. Like for example, Doug Wilson, he's not a very emotional speaker. Like, he doesn't get uppity. He's
not an emotional guy.
He doesn't raise his voice ever. You know what I mean? He's very even keeled and mild mannered, but what he says is unadulterated. There's no you're not going to get wishy-washy squish with him. Mm-hmm. It's just not the case. And he's willing to knock over all your sacred cows. Yeah. And the thing is the pastor in To Catch a Predator, that we don't know who he is, but there's a good chance that he was not willing to crush this kid's sacred cow, mm-hmm. and be like, dude, no, this is evil. And if you do this kind of thing, God says it's better for you to go drown in the ocean. Mm-hmm. So don't do it. And by the way, I'm going to call the police right now. Right. And so good luck. You know what I mean? No, but yes, it's a very common call. And I think it's an important call for some people, but you definitely see an overemphasis considering that our main problems are really the opposite of this.
It is. And it's not just this, again, we're not these elites talking in classrooms and country clubs about the theoretical. And is it really good to talk to men like they're gentle and effeminate? But we have practical application of why we need men to be men today. I just retweeted a video earlier from Matt Walsh of women celebrating they're going to go get their second abortion. We have women, because they have men not being men who are sleeping around outside of marriage, who aren't telling them what they're doing is wrong, celebrating their slaughter of children. Thousands and thousands of children are getting slaughtered every day because we don't have men taking responsibility. We don't have men owning their actions. We don't have men leading the women that they're sleeping with. It's like, it's not just theoretical. It's not theology. It's not just this utopian that we want to build. We have bloody battles to fight. And telling people to be gentle is not going to help with these battles.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I think you're dead on there. And again, this is just it's just very common to see that kind of rhetoric. And it's important to have balance and for a guy like me who has a YouTube channel and is known for saying spicy things from time to time, I need to consider this stuff. I absolutely do. Yeah. But again, if you do want to influence me for the good, and you think maybe I go too far sometimes, well, you can tell me that. But it's going to need to have some substance to it. It just can't be just like, well, it's just too mean. It's like, it's not going to work, man.
Yeah, it's not going to work. And because we have the Bible, we know the Bible. And it's not like we have this like secret knowledge that you don't have, but it's like, it's clear. It's right there. You can see it. And there's too much important things happening in life for us to just back down and to go back to the status quo, because look at where we're at.
Yes.
And I don't want to say this, but look, you guys have led us to this point. Like the older generations, we're here because of you guys in a lot of respects. This isn't just something that just happened. This has been happening for 100 years. And so please don't tell me to be gentle and just be quiet and to be, this little wait your turn, go get your degree, just say things in a polite way. It didn't work, guys. Your ways didn't work. You're not effective. ERLC, what have you lobbied for that's been successful? What's one thing? Like, oh my gosh, 80. I saw some, like, they're going to now go lobby in Ireland for abortion rights, or for pro-life causes. It's like, you can't even get it right in the United States. Why are you going to another country? Are you kidding me? I don't know. I feel like I've been yelling a lot this episode. I'm sorry.
Why are you so angry, man?
I'm so fired up. I feel like we're being effective. And I feel like there's a lot of things that matter. There's things that really matter to me in this fight. And it's more of excitement than anger. So I hope that people see it as that. I feel like we're doing good work. That's what I honestly think.
Well, I hope so.
But could I want to talk to you about this. I didn't tell you I want to talk about this, but since we're kind of talking about abortion, this has been something that I've been thinking about of late. And it's something that I've had, it's more like a confession time, I think, it's been really hard for me to talk about abortion and just in general to do things, to get involved, because it makes me so angry, AD, that like when I actually think about what's happening, I have to like physically control myself from going out in a rage. And I'm saying that as a confession because I know that's not right. That's not good. I'm not having control of myself. And I think there might be other people out there too that are kind of like that. And we kind of justify it because it's an atrocity. It's a horrible thing. But I was thinking about it today. And it's like, I literally cannot get involved in abortion ministries. I can't talk about it a lot on Twitter because of how angry I get. And that's not good either. And that kind of goes back to what we've been talking about too, is like there's a place to be controlled and not just be angry and outlandish. Sure. And I've been really thinking about that today of how like, I don't think I do as much as I should in the abortion fight and talking and participating because of how angry I get. And that's not right. I shouldn't be doing that. I need to repent of that.
I think that's a good thought. And I would suggest for you would be to talk to people who are, constantly in this fight and people that go to the clinics and talk to, women all day long and try to convince them to not kill their babies, because I'm sure that they've been where you are. You know what I mean? Yeah. That would probably help because they probably, have dealt with that kind of thing before.
Yeah, definitely. Because I mean, it's justifiable, I guess, to some sense.
Sure.
But absolutely. It shouldn't be a place where we let it control us, where we can't be effective and do what's right and say it,
it's no despair this year, man. No despair.
No despair. And I'm not despair. I just wanted to share that because I think there are other people out there that are probably like that too. And that we should get involved in stuff. So I wanted to end with this. Like we talk about all the things that are wrong with Christianity, but I was just really encouraged this week with Tom Buck. He's an SBC guy. He's hilarious. If you do not follow Tom Buck, you should really do it because he's funny. And also pray for his daughter. I believe she's in the hospital. I'm not sure exactly why, because I've just recently been a follower. I don't know too much about the SBC. Even though my test today told me that I'm an SBC person 100%. Which I don't know if that means like ERLC SBC or Founders SBC. There's a big difference nowadays. But there's people like Tom Askell. There's people like Jared Longshore. And there's a lot of great people that are in these higher positions with influence that are doing the right thing, that are fighting the good fight. And I don't want it to make it sound like everybody who's in these organizations are bad. There are good people out there. And I want you guys to be encouraged by that. I want you guys to encourage those people too, because it's much harder for them to do this fight than it is for us from the outside. Wouldn't you agree with that?
I would agree with that. Yes, definitely.
Yeah. So I would highly recommend that. Okay. Lastly, I wanted to talk about this article from, oh my gosh, I had it pulled up. ERLC. I thought it was Christianity Today because of how liberal it was, but no, it was ERLC. You're in trouble as ERLC when you're getting conflated with the Christianity Today. They have this article called Christians Are Called to Love Those Affected by the Coronavirus. And I read that honestly thinking, yeah, that's good, because I actually have those thoughts. Last week, we didn't get to it, but I wanted to talk about that. It's like, how do we behave and how do we act with people that have these diseases? Like, should we go minister to them and not worry about our health? Should we be cautious and leave them in quarantine and not minister to them? Like,
where'd you land on that? I'd be interested to hear what you had to say.
Okay, well, let's just talk about that right now then.
Let's talk about
I don't know where I land on that.
Yeah.
I think it's a conscience call, honestly, because, again, we have multiple responsibilities. Like, I'm not going to go, well, personally, I don't want to go and get infected by maybe not the coronavirus is such a big deal, but let's just say it was like the Ebola virus or something, and then threaten my responsibilities to my family.
Sure.
And I don't know if that's right or wrong, but that's kind of where I was. It's like, I want my primary ministry is my family. I want to take care of them. If I can minister to these people that are sick or their families in some other way, I feel God wants me to, I'll do it.
Very interesting. So where did the ERLC land?
ERLC landed on this. You need to stop blaming the Chinese.
Oh. So wait a minute. Okay. So let me get this straight.
It's true.
Let me get this straight. So you saw the title of the article and you started thinking about these very complex, difficult questions about your responsibilities and having compassion and all this stuff. Very legitimate sounding things you were thinking about.
I was. And so I went and consulted with the elites who tell us all of how to live and think.
And what they told
you, family lives.
And so instead of that, they told you to not hate Chinese people.
Yeah, and that there's bullying going on and harassment.
Bullying.
And physical assault of Asian people have suffered.
Okay, so
and it's but no, this is the worst part.
That's not good.
This is the worst part. It's perpetuating false stereotypes of Chinese people.
What are those stereotypes?
I don't know. What is a false stereotype of Chinese people having to do with a sickness, a virus? I wasn't aware of Chinese people being known for viruses.
Okay, so hold on a second. Let's stop. Okay, so I saw an article, and it wasn't ERLC. It was a different article that said, or it was a tweet, and I forget exactly what. Oh no, it wasn't a tweet. It was a video, and it was like a very, very flamboyant guy talking about how it's not nice to like criticize Chinese for their eating habits. And it's like, and people were posting videos of like Chinese people eating bats because I guess they eat bats, and saying how like that's where coronavirus started.
That's gross.
You ate the bat, and the bat had the coronavirus. I have no idea about any of this. So you think that's what they're talking about?
Maybe. I have heard people say that we should eat bats and stop having such white privilege and first world privilege. That we should sympathize and eat bats.
Oh. I mean, I'm sure they taste good, but
it's terrible. But okay, so the point of this article is, it's easy to make fun of because it's so ridiculous.
Right.
It's like you're talking about an article about how we should respond to Christians, or how we should respond to people as Christians to a serious thing, a life-threatening thing. People have died from this. Granted, it's not like as big as other things could be, but what you turn to, unsourced, by the way, the whole thing unsourced. There's sources to like other articles, but those articles don't have sources, which is my favorite kind of sourcing in the world. It's like The Atlantic, it's The Guardian.
That's so funny that you say that because I was just clicking on one to see like what is the source of this, and I was just coming to that conclusion as well, that it's just like an assertion that there's people that are being racist. Mm-hmm. Because of coronavirus. And it's like, I'm sure that there's someone out there doing that, but like, it was so funny. Let's bring this thing full circle. So the Kevin DeYoung article, one of the things about it was like, you got to make sure they've got their sources. And if they don't have their sources, then, they're just a pundit. And the ERLC article about racist Chinese coronavirus doesn't have any sources. Listen to this. This sounds pretty serious, though. It sounds like they're not kidding. Fake flyers have advised residents to avoid Asian American businesses. Others flyers joke that the epidemic is a hoax. People have moved seats when a person of Asian descent sits near them, and those who wear face masks or even cough are ridiculed for or accused of spreading the virus.
Oh no, I just went to go click on the fake flyers link and the Reuters article was taken down.
No, Matt, this can't be real.
Oh, and I was trying to go to it. Oh, okay, here it goes, pulls up. At the very bottom, there are retractions about stories about fake flyers that were put out.
The virus has affected more than 50 people in the United States, and many have been affected by the fear that those who appear Asian, who have spent their entire lives outside of China, somehow carry the virus. So this ERLC article is expecting me to believe that there's a whole legion of people out there that think that if you're Chinese Even if you've never been to China and you've lived here for your whole life and you're Chinese, that somehow in your body, there's this latent coronavirus that we're just finding out about now and has not affected anyone ever, but it's somehow like latent in you. And now is the time when it's going to come out. That's what they're expecting us to believe. There's a lot of people that believe that.
Yeah, absolutely. Because there's a history of it. And they tell us about it in the article. In 1892, typhus came to the Russian Jews in New York. In 1993, in New Mexico and Utah, Native Americans were to blame for another virus. And guys,
this is pretty stupid.
This is so stupid.
This is stupider than I thought it was. And you kind of mentioned this to me before we went live. This is actually dumber than I thought it would be.
Yeah, it's incredibly stupid. And then it urges us to take proper precautions of a virus that we don't even know how it's being spread. So I don't know. It would be really nice if they would cite some things, being the PhDs and the academics that they are, the elites.
Well, in fairness, let's be fair here. Grace Liu is the current intern in the national office.
Oh, really? I didn't look at that.
This is written by an intern. And okay, fine, But I've noticed that a lot of the worst articles on here are typically written by interns.
80. I just had an idea, and I feel like it's time to do this. We need to write a response to what we expect from the elites in every article.
No, stop. No, you stop right now. Stop right now. And I have to tell you this. Maybe Kevin DeYoung's article was low-key genius. Maybe he was coming out strong against the ERLC, because listen to this.
4G chess?
Listen to 4D chess, guys. You heard it here first. Kevin DeYoung was engaging in 4D chess. Listen to Grace Liu. She just wrote an article about racism against Chinese, SARS virus and how to prevent it, and stuff like that. And listen to her credentials. Ready? She's a rising junior at Vanderbilt University, majoring in human organizational development and violin performance.
She's definitely not sticking in her lane to get clicks.
That's maybe the Kevin DeYoung article was low key a way to undermine Big Eva and not me. I got it all wrong.
That could be it, guys.
That could be it. I'm going to go with that because I like Kevin and I want to think the best about him. We're supposed to believe all things.
Oh my gosh.
This article is something. So the big deal with the coronavirus, it's not about, what to do when your neighbor gets sick and you have the decision to make. That would be a good article. Mm-hmm. That would actually be a helpful article.
It would be. You
know what I mean? But instead, it's about how you shouldn't be racist towards Chinese people because that's bad. Racism is bad, Matt. I don't know if you've heard that in the last 30 minutes, but it's bad.
I heard it's a sin in the Bible too, somewhere.
Yeah.
Somewhere. All right, let's wrap this up. So please go out and help the Chinese people by ordering some Chinese food today at lunch and give some
You're so racist.
Make sure you don't go to the other side of the street when you see a Chinese person passing you.
Stop. I got to tell you something. This is funny. Did you ever watch Seinfeld?
Yes, I love it.
So there was a scene in Seinfeld that just reminded me of it where Jerry says he's dating an Asian woman or something. And Jerry says, I love Asian women. And Elaine goes, that's so prejudiced. Or that's so racist. And he says, if I like them, how can it be racist? So I just said it's racist to order Chinese food, but if you like Chinese food, how can it be racist?
Panda Express is the best Chinese food in the world.
Here's another story. There's a woman on Food Network named Ree Drummond, and she got into hot water because she was doing an episode about how to make the best wings. And so she made these Asian styled wings. And then she said that she needed to make a regular batch of buffalo wings for her husband because her husband didn't like weird flavors. And she got into hot water about that because how could you say that the Asian flavors are weird? That's racist.
What do you say? They taste like bats.
Listen, we're at the point now, like if I say, no, I would never try a bat, which I think I probably would. But
I would not.
Yeah, fair enough, because it's freaking weird.
Yes.
But if you say that, then you'll be racist.
Yeah, I'm pulling my white privilege card on that one. I'm like, nope. Nope. Give me a ribeye.
Right. This
No, that's all good. Go order Chinese food. Watch some Seinfeld. Go subscribe to us on Reformgelical. Share the show. Support us at the patreon.com/Reformgelical. Thank you, everyone, for listening live. Dave, Micah, Big Nate. I appreciate you guys. Big Nick. And we'll talk to you next week. God bless.